Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Have had yourselves a great day, a great week. We're halfway through it, so a little bit closer to that Friday and that weekend. I know my week's going by pretty quick. I don't know about you guys, but certainly hope you guys are having a great week out there so far. And I appreciate you folks joining me this evening as we discuss the pattern over the next really 2 to 3 days. And we're even going to speak on what can happen overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, and then move on to Thursday and Friday. So we have a ring of fire pattern, which is a term that we use in the weather world and the weather community. And it's basically, I guess you would say, slang for a pattern that supports very hard to predict rounds of strong to severe storms around this axis of high pressure, this ridge of high pressure, which has been affecting areas of the south central U.S. for a long time now, for a few weeks, which has been bringing awful heat and even some storms kind of on the outer portions of it, but it's bulged north, it's broadened, and it's actually shifted east. So there's a lot of areas to make all that pretty short that are going to see some hard to predict strong to severe storms, rounds of them, and there could be multiple rounds that hit some of the same areas. So what we're going to do here this evening is we're going to try to give our best guess at this. But I'm telling you guys, I'll probably say it about 100 more times. This is very difficult to predict. And by the time we're making a video and tomorrow morning's video, we could be speaking about totally different geographical locations, pretty close to one another. But remember, stay up to date with the latest information. Things are going to change a lot over the next couple days, depending on what day it is. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over? As always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. And we glorify God doing it through prayer. It's powerful. Let's take advantage of that, and let's look out for one another here. So let's get rolling. So let's discuss the pattern in general. So you see the red on your screen, the orange on your screen. Basically, this is where the ridge is, where those warmer colors look on your screen. This is where the axis is. This is ridge of high pressures right into here. And really, this is pretty much right now based off the GFS. So on the outer portions of this, and I'll try to wake this thing up. Let's see if we're in the black. We have rounds of energy that kind of surge on the upper portion of this, and little weak low pressures, pieces of energy, and they just form with daytime heating, explode, continue to carry on throughout the overnight hours and the weekend, and then another round will form and fly across the upper portions of this. If you're immediately under this heat dome, a ridge of high pressure, then you're probably just going to get hot, a flowless, sinking, stagnant air. Very hot temperatures, very moist, and very uncomfortable, and no real shower or storm activity to give you guys any relief in the afternoon and evening hours when it's blazing out there. Now, this was shifted a little bit further over here over the last couple weeks. So you did have a flow like over Arkansas, Oklahoma, Eastern Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. But this is shifting further east, so you're going to get a more of a storm flow into sort of this region right into here over the next few days. Okay, so this is going to kind of be the area, but I can tell you this will be the main area of focus right into here for sure. So let's go on and get this off the screen, and we'll actually get this in motion for you guys. And let's get this fully off here. And you can see how this warmer colors on your screen, which is, think of this as the ridge. You got troughing right here, upper troughing right here. This is the ridge of high pressure. Watch as it moves and broadens or either shrinks, builds northward, and it moves a little bit further east. And that is why, if you're looking at your 10-day forecast across the southeast, the Carolinas, it shows where you have a very hot weekend ahead. And that is because this axis of this, basically this upper ridging, builds eastward, warms your temperatures up, and you're still going to have these pieces of energy that fly through here and continues. And this basically, this bulging of this high pressure just begins to slowly kind of ooze east, and then you're going to get some big time summer type conditions in the southeast and areas of the southeast like the Carolinas, like Virginia, that really have not seen super hot temperatures yet. In fact, Greenville, Spartanburg area has not hit 90 degrees yet. I think the latest they've ever went, for example, in the summertime before hitting The latest they've ever been without hitting 90 degrees is, I think, July 8th. But you guys certainly are going to hit 90 degrees within the next 1 to 2 days, that's for sure. Another way to look at this is the 500 millibar flow. You see these colors in like blue and purple right here. This is basically winds and the upper levels of the atmosphere here. You got winds at, basically a 30 to as much as a 50 knot mid-level flow up here, way up in the upper levels in the atmosphere here. And think of this as basically where the avenue, kind of the road network of these pieces of energy flow. And they're flowing on the upper portion of this center of high pressure, which is right here. So you look at the wind barbs, they're facing this way, which means winds are coming out of this. So you got this flow like this with little pieces of energy flying through here. Let's see if this is in motion, and we'll get this in motion. And just kind of watch this as it moves around. You see right here, you see how the winds are going around this area right here. This is that center of that upper ridging. That high pressure is right in here. So right in the immediate area where you have that center of high pressure, you are not going to get any storm development. But on the outer regions of this, where you see all this flow aloft, you have forcing for thunderstorm development. So what I'm trying to say is, up here where you see more colors, you see no colors in the white, this is where you're going to have storms that are flying across this region and all the way into the Carolinas, maybe North Georgia. Very difficult to figure out. You can actually see this on a water vapor loop pretty well. And we'll wake this thing back up. Look at the pink. Look at this. You see how you kind of have this flow that's kind of going like this. Even up here, it's going like that. High pressure right into here somewhere. Okay, so you got, look at this explosive area thunderstorm development in eastern Wyoming that's moving into the Dakotas and western Nebraska. It's happening right now in this region right here. So you got pieces of energy, low pressures, that's supposed to be to L if you're wondering what it is. Basically, that ride the upper portion of this ridge, and then it flows down here into this region. That is going to be the storyline. I'd really drawn that out for you guys, made it way too long than it had to be, but you know how I am. I like to overly explain things, but there you are. So let's look at the Storm Prediction Center. This is right now, between now, well, it was throughout the day today, between now and then tomorrow morning, and then we get to day 2, which we'll talk about here in a second. But we have ongoing storms developing right now. You saw it on water vapor loop, so you will continue this slight risk. Not going to talk about this much. We will talk a little bit on this region right into here. So we'll continue the tornado threat, very small bimodal mode out here, 2% risk, not a big deal, but it is a risk. Wind threat, 15% risk areas of 50 knots or higher winds. That's 55 to 60 mile per hour winds. And then the hail threats. You have an elevated chance of hail here, a hatched risk. That is a 10% risk in this black outlined area to see hail exceeding 2-inch diameter or larger. But you got the hail risk right here too. So if we focus in on this region right now, and there's a reason we are, I typically don't talk about weather the day of, especially in the evening videos. And you look right here, this is where you have that slight risk. So in this region right here, we don't have any severe warned storms, but watch out over the next couple hours. The storms could get quite intense, maybe around the Eau Claire area and surrounding regions, maybe a little bit further north, northwest. Just watch out in this region a little bit later today. It's a little bit later tonight. It's really down here where I'm watching the chance for robust thunderstorm development overnight tonight. Down here in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, these are going to be heavy topics in this video. And in fact, let's go on and jump to that. So let's talk about what can happen overnight tonight. We'll compare the HRRR model with the NAM, and we'll start this off around 9 p.m. Central Time tonight. If you're confused about what time frame we're at any point, look at right here and back it up 1 hour, because this is an Eastern time, but we need to back it up 1 hour because what we're looking at here is Central Time. So we'll get this going in time. At this point, we're at midnight, right? Smack in the middle of the night, right? Here's a little bit of storm development popping up here in southern Iowa, okay? Well south of Des Moines. This quickly tries to grow a little bit more upscale. At the same time, you got a lot of shower and storm activity beginning to develop in the heart of Illinois, right smack in the middle of it, okay? We keep this going. At this point, it's around 4 a.m. in the morning. We got storms even all the way back here in Nebraska developing, but we got some intense storms right around the Missouri Iowa state line at 4 o'clock in the morning. A lot of scattered convection. You guys need the rain in this area, but I'm afraid that it's going to come at a price, and I'm about to show you why. But you keep this going, and you get all the way to about 6 a.m., okay? people who have to get to work pretty early are starting to wake up at this time frame. Could wake up to some storms around the Chicago area. Could wake up to storms really anywhere in Illinois. It's going to be very difficult to figure out exactly who, but you keep this going. Intense storms right here in western Illinois. Peoria, you could be dealing with some storms. Davenport, Iowa, some storms. They could be all the way up here at Rockford. They could be all the way down here in St. Louis. But I would say St. Louis, your threat comes maybe later in the morning. But you stop it right here, and then we enter day 2. Okay. I really think most of the storm activity really fires up later tonight. But you stop it here because then we're going to enter the next time frame. And if this is right, we're waking up to some very messy conditions anywhere from southern Iowa, northern Missouri potentially, maybe a good large portion of Illinois is waking up to some very stormy conditions. These storms could very well be all the way down St. Louis, but you got some nasty weather beginning to enter Indiana as we're starting off our morning tomorrow morning. So this is what the HRRR model looks like between now and tomorrow morning. If we look at the NAM, and the reason I'm not showing like Wisconsin, more of Wisconsin, is because a lot of model guidance indicates there's going to be kind of a gap in between this area. But if you look at the NAM, okay, let's back it up a little bit. It has storm development popping off right around 11 p.m. tonight, midnight, so a little bit earlier. And the NAM has a lot more activity in northern Missouri compared to southern Iowa. And the NAM wants to already hit areas like St. Louis with some storm action. And watch what happens. I'm going to tell you, about 2 a.m., you have a nasty line of storms beginning to develop in Missouri. Okay? These could be producing very strong winds, hail, and maybe even a tornado threat. It's not ruled out in this region, even though it's below 2% in this region in this time frame. But a pretty intense line of storms developing. Quincy area points west. Watch out. Could these extend all the way to Columbia, Missouri in this region? It's possible. But you stop it here. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, right? You compare it with 2 o'clock in the morning on the latest HRRR model. There's hardly nothing going on, right? Look at this compared to this. That's a big difference, right? That's how difficult this is. It's very, very difficult. Okay, but you keep this going. We've got to get back to the NAM here. You keep this going here. Intense storms hitting St. Louis in the wee hours of the morning, well before the sun comes up, based off the NAM. You also got an area of storms flying down here, affecting a lot of the more heavily populated areas of the communities and towns and cities in eastern Iowa. You got to watch. Even watch some storms in southern sections of Wisconsin. Okay, well, waking up, we're getting to about 6 a.m. at this time frame. These storms that were riding down here kind of along the Mississippi River where Illinois and Missouri border one another, they're pretty intense about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. These could potentially lose some steam before affecting the boot heel of Missouri, southern Illinois, and then we start day 2. And we'll stop it here, okay? Day 2, which is tomorrow morning, is showing some storms affecting Evansville down here, close to Paducah, Kentucky, and areas of western Kentucky. You got some storms up here in northern Indiana. Okay, but you compare it with this time frame, same time frame, and the HRRR model wants you guys to be waking up to a lot more messy of a scenario compared to the NAM. So, I would say they agree somewhat more in the morning hours, but the HRRR model has some big time storms back here a little bit further west, but the NAM does not have anything further west as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So I'm going to tell you, it's a tough situation. But if I'm in southern Iowa, all of Illinois, especially central Illinois, northern and eastern Missouri, I would watch out and just fasten anything that's loose in your yard, anything that's going to fly around, even if they're not calling for you look at your weather apps and they're not calling for a pretty high chance of storms or anything. I would really do that, because this is going to be very interesting to see what ends up being right. So the reason I'm showing you this is because as we go to day 2, which is tomorrow, you got a massive slight risk. And I want to let you guys know, we could very well wake up to an enhanced risk tomorrow morning. And we could very well wake up to a slight risk in a totally different area. They could still be in this area, but we could wake up to a totally different area, broadened out to a new area. So we're getting into tomorrow. Tornado risk. There's a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles of any given location. This does include Springfield, Illinois, all the way down to Evansville, Indiana, and everybody in between. Okay, this includes Many areas, Effingham, Mount Vernon, it looks like it's affected by this. And even Louisville, you got a small tornado risk. Indianapolis, Peoria also. Okay. What is going on with the morning convection has a big influencer on what happens later on in the afternoon, evening, in the overnight time frame in this region. It's massive implications on that. I can't reiterate that enough. What areas of the atmosphere are stabilized from outflow boundaries, from morning convection, showers and storms? That's a big question. Wind threat tomorrow, you got a huge 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour. Okay. Hail, both areas. You got a 15% hatched risk in over here, which means you have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter, and then a 10% risk of more significant hail, which is 2 inch in diameter or larger in both of these areas. And this includes a very large area. Depending on what that morning convection does, it depends on how much the atmosphere really recovers with the high end CAPE values that I think will surge into this region. CAPE meaning that fuel that these storms can really take advantage of. So you got a pretty large area, including Chicago, including Indianapolis, almost including St. Louis, a 10% risk of significant hail in this region. So let's go on and go back to the same time frame, right? We'll go right back to the HRRR model, and it indicates some pretty intense storms you're waking up to in eastern Illinois and western Indiana. Okay, but what actually will be going on? But, Champaign, Lafayette, Indiana, all the way to Indianapolis, Bloomington, in all these regions right here, this could very well be up in Chicago. It's a big question. So watch what this does. This heads on down very quickly, surges southeast, and this is when that real northwest flow really starts to kick in here. It comes in from the northwest, moves southeast. This really begins to affect Evansville. I think at places like Evansville are likely going to get hit by something, but this really begins to move into this region. Evansville, Louisville, this could be an intense area of storms moving in about early to mid-morning. Based off the HRRR model, and this continues to trail off, this shows a very intense storm. Down here, kind of around the Harrisburg, Illinois area, points south and southeast. This really has this hitting the Paducah area, has some intense storms moving into that western and central Kentucky region. This is around midday tomorrow. Central and western Kentucky could very well be dealing with a pretty nasty line of storms, a mesoscale convective system, that MCS for short. And then this begins to move into Tennessee, and we'll talk about you guys in a second. But that's what the HRRR model says. But then look as we get into the afternoon hours, it's around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, some intense storms affecting Milwaukee, okay, potentially. You could have some strong storms up here, okay? And then look at these more storms forming kind of in eastern areas of Missouri. All right, not a whole lot is going on in Illinois, right? You're getting into the overnight hours, could have some intense storms at this point where it's way in the middle of the night tomorrow night. And then look, more powerful storms as we're waking up around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, I don't know if I wake up that early, but I know most people don't. But 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, look at these intense storms entering western Illinois Friday morning, not tomorrow morning, which could be the same thing tomorrow morning. And then we're waking up for Friday morning with this, okay? What does the NAM show? Same kind of situation. It both eventually latch on to the idea of this complex of showers and storms into western and central Kentucky. So I really think if you're in western and central Kentucky, you're going to be affected by potentially an intense line of storms sometime tomorrow morning. But all these models could be wrong. They very well could be. And I know you're thinking, Mitch, you're not really helping us out at all, but we got a long ways to go before we figure out the flow around a ridge of high pressure. I can tell you that. It's very difficult. But these storms eventually trail off into Tennessee into the early afternoon hours. We'll talk about that in a second. And, and then we get into the middle of the afternoon. We're getting into the overnight hours at this point, and the NAM doesn't like the idea of anything else popping up anytime tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening for Illinois, Indiana, Missouri. Eventually you start to get into the overnight hours and to like that wee hours of the morning time frame after midnight Thursday night. And it kind of likes the idea of the HRRR model, shows some storms moving out of Missouri, out of southern and southeast sections of Iowa, and then eventually you're waking up Friday morning to maybe some nasty weather again in Illinois. But it's difficult, guys. It is. What I can tell you is the updraft Felicity swath from this morning round of showers and storms, it really likes the idea of a pretty intense storm or two down here in western Kentucky. You got to watch for some spinners. That's why you got a 5% risk of a tornado down here into this region right here. Be careful for this tornado threat. Do not ignore it just because this is more of a linear mode, meaning a line of storms. Please be careful of any tornadoes embedded in this line of storms. Those are the most dangerous ones, the ones you typically don't see coming. And then you wait until you get into tomorrow night, and then you're waking up tomorrow morning with even more storms that could be rotating. But watch out with this morning line of storms. There could be some rotation with this, and some of them can latch, and you could have some tornado warnings that you're dealing with. We're probably going to be dealing with potentially tomorrow morning. Okay. So what about a little areas further southeast? I know a lot of people are wondering about this region, the Southern Alps region, which this includes everybody you see on your map. Virginia, North Carolina, the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, West Virginia. So we're going to watch to see what this line of storms does as it moves into Kentucky. We already talked about Kentucky. We'll pause it here. This is about 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon tomorrow afternoon. Okay. I'm going to tell you, these storms could very well be a little bit further west and very well be a little bit further east, okay? And they could be more intense than what this is showing. They could be completely dissipated, and we might not be dealing with anything. But I'm telling you, if I'm in, I would say, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Clarksville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, I would be watching out around late morning, early to mid-afternoon tomorrow for an intense line of storms. We're going to go back over all this in the morning. But this will be your time frame to watch out for, guys, for some nasty storms, I would say. And does this remain compact as it enters eastern Tennessee? That's a huge question. This could very well still be a very intense line of storms, even though on the latest long-range HRRR model, it shows it weakening. Okay? We just got to watch. We got to watch what the storms do in the morning, surface observations tomorrow, and how the atmosphere builds. But, it shows the leftovers of this reaching all the way to North Georgia and then fully dissipating. And then we get into tomorrow night. What happens after that? Shows some northwest flow action ongoing across the eastern hills of Kentucky, western Virginia, northeast Tennessee, western South Carolina, and North Carolina. Could this be a more organized line of storms, more intense than what this kind of scattered and smothered and convection shows? It could be. But then we're getting into Friday, and I think Friday could potentially be a big day across the Southern Alps. But let's look at the NAM. What could happen tomorrow? Same kind of situation. Shows this line of storms extending a little bit further west. But like I said, late morning, early afternoon, Nashville, surrounding regions, central Tennessee. The NAM really has this dissipating very quickly into tomorrow morning, into tomorrow afternoon, which makes me wonder. And look at this. It shows some storm activity tomorrow night, kind of around the Clemson, Pickens area in South Carolina. Possible. That's tomorrow night. And then we get into the overnight hours of tomorrow, and it doesn't really show a whole lot going on. And then we get into Friday morning, and then it shows some of that convection. It's just more delayed on the NAM. So it's a big question trying to figure out what's going to happen. But, we will talk about Friday out here for the Northern Plains. And I will tell you, you guys could see day 3 of some intense storms. Some powerful supercells are possible. 1 or 2 very powerful supercells are possible sort of in southeast Wyoming and western Nebraska. I would watch this area. You guys could really get punched hard with a pretty powerful storm or two. Kind of what's developing right now. Could happen again for the 3rd day in a row in this region. Very large hail. The potential for an isolated tornado and damaging winds is the possibility. But basically here in eastern Wyoming, northeast Colorado, western Nebraska, and western South Dakota, this entire region will be at risk for some dangerous weather tomorrow. So please be aware. That's why you're under a slight risk. Even has another supercell really going on this is getting into the overnight hours here in southeast Wyoming. So be careful. Definitely a stormy day tomorrow in this portion of the country again. You get into our Friday, guys, and this could be a big day too. just as big as tomorrow. The slight risk extends in general a little bit further east and southeast, right over some higher terrain of the central and southern Alps. You have a slight risk, and it's just a 15% risk of severe weather, which at day 3 you don't have the category risk broken down. It's always just a chance of severe weather, and there will be. And if you look at the NAM, and the NAM goes out pretty much all the way to Friday, and you start off Friday morning, we can't look at the HRRR model, it only goes out 48 hours. And it really shows as this is getting into Friday early afternoon, some storms, some intense storms beginning to develop, potentially near West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky, where you meet, eastern Kentucky in general. Does this continue to roll into southern areas of West Virginia? You got some storms up here in southern Ohio. As we're getting into your Friday night activities, whatever you may be doing, you want to be aware of this. You got some storms showing up in the Western Carolinas. I'll be honest, guys, there's no point in me really even showing you guys Friday, because this is most likely going to look totally different tomorrow around this time. But I want to give you an idea. In this entire frame right into here, intense storms are possible. And what I'm really watching for here is, as we work our way later into the overnight hours, if something like this comes true, this is around the middle of the night, Friday night and a Saturday morning, this shows a pretty nasty line of storms blasting through extreme western areas of Virginia and then to northeast and eastern areas of Tennessee. This would rock this area pretty hard. And then this, as far out as it goes, only goes out to 2 a.m. Saturday morning, but really shows an intense line of storms making its way over the higher elevations of Tennessee and North Carolina. Guys, that's all I got. Just know that this is going to change a lot. But we'll figure it out for you folks and keep you guys aware. It's MCS season, mesoscale convective season. It's one of the only very few things I enjoy about summer. I like talking about it because it's always great to learn, to see which models handle it better. But we're approaching the dog days of summer. It already feels like it for a lot of folks, and we're going to continue to mosey our way through summer and eventually make our way to fall, which is personally my favorite time of the year. God bless all y'all. Have a great night. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you in the morning.